Hello boys, welcome back to another interesting session of video tutorials, and this session is meant for class 11th biology students, and this is meant for 8th September 2020. We have been discussing about body fluids and their circulation. So far we were concentrating on the blood, which is the main fluid in our body, and its circulation. And we also studied about the pumping organ, our heart, and the anatomy of the heart and how it exactly functions. If there is any disturbance in the functioning of the heart, through a small and easy procedure called ECG, we can also detect if there is any flaw, if there is any error or mistake in the anatomy of heart, and remedial measures can be taken by the cardiologist. So we were studying about ECG in our previous class, and now we focus on another liquid which also flows in our body. So it is one of the body fluids, and that's called lymph. So it occurs in the spaces between the cells of a tissue, and it is called as interstitial fluid or tissue fluid. So lymph is called interstitial fluid as it flows in between the cells of a tissue. The exchange of any material, solid, liquid or gas, that occurs between the blood and the tissue cells always takes place through this fluid called lymph. Under the pressure of blood in the capillaries, some of the water and desired solutes are filtered out from the blood plasma into the tissue spaces to form the tissue fluid. The composition of this tissue fluid is very similar to that of plasma, except that it has much less protein, and proteins are less because some of the proteins are not filtered out from the capillary walls. They become impermeable. Some of the tissue fluid enters tiny channels called lymph vessels. Just like blood vessels, we have got lymph vessels, and the fluid collected in them is called lymph. And this system is known as lymphatic system. Like we said, blood circulatory system, like that, it is lymphatic circulatory system. These lymph vessels unite to form large lymph vessels, and these ultimately drain into two large lymph vessels called thoracic duct and right lymphatic duct. There are two main ducts, thoracic duct and right lymphatic duct. These open into veins, returning the lymph finally into venous blood, and so the general circulatory system. This movement of lymph is mainly due to squeezing action of the surrounding muscles. So without the help of muscles, the lymphatic system cannot work. So the lymphatic system is slow and uncertain. Exercise increases. Look at that. Why should you do PT, NCC, cross country? That helps you a lot biologically. Exercise increases the rate of lymph circulation. Generally, the rate of lymph formation is equal to the rate of its return to the bloodstream. But sometimes the formation rate of lymph exceeds the rate of its return to blood. The increased volume of fluid around the cells then creates a swelling called edema. Many times when you are hurt, when you are injured, there will be swelling in the area, and that's called edema. So that is because of the excessive fluid of lymph. And what are the functions of lymph? What do they do? First, lymph serves to return interstitial fluid into the blood. This is the main function. Second, the plasma proteins, which are big molecules, macromolecules, synthesized by the liver cells, cannot pass into blood vessels because of their size, but can diffuse into lymph vessels through their wall, and they come to the blood through lymph. So big protein molecules are circulated. It also carries absorbed fats and lipids from the small intestine to the blood in the form of chylomicron droplets. So these are the three main functions of lymph. Along with that, of course, there will be a type of WBCs called lymphocytes. So they also help in our defense. So what is the lymphatic system made up of? The lymphatic system is an extension of a circulatory system. It consists of fluid known as lymph capillaries and lymph ducts. So lymphatic system is made up of three: lymph fluid, lymph capillaries, small tubulets, and lymph ducts. So lymph can be defined as blood minus RBCs. In addition to blood vascular system, all vertebrates possess a lymphatic system. It is colorless basically or yellowish fluid present in the lymph vessels. It's mobile connective tissue like blood and is formed by the filtration of blood. That is lymph. Now, where does it flow? How does it flow? Through lymph capillaries, small, thin, lined by endothelium, resting on a basement membrane and fine, whose one end is blind and the other end unites to form lymphatic ducts. Lymphatic ducts are vessels. Numerous, there are many, present in various parts of the body. Throughout the body they are present. These vessels are like veins, as they have all the three layers. So the lymph duct is made up of three layers: tunica externa, outside; tunica media, in between; tunica interna, internal, and are provided with watch pocket or semi-lunar valves. Remember the anatomy of heart, and valves are more in number than in veins. And what is the difference between blood and lymph? Just now we said RBC minus RBC we said. See, in lymph it is absent, in blood it is present. And blood platelets, it is present in blood, absent in lymph. So RBC is absent, blood platelets also absent. WBC present generally 7000 cubic millimeter. It is again WBC, a type of WBC, lymphocytes I said, present generally 500 to 75,000 per cubic millimeter. Look at that. So look at the number. Plasma is present, liquid part of it, in both. Albumin and globulin, these are the proteins. The albumin is more than globulin, here also same. Fibrinogen is more because blood clotting should take place, here it is less. Coagulation property naturally depends on fibrinogen. In blood it is more, it is less here in lymph. Direction of flow, this is most important. It is two-way, we said double circulation, heart to tissues and tissues to heart. Whereas here, only one way, lymph flows in unidirection, tissues to heart only. And rate of flow, it's fast because the anatomy of heart and anatomy of arteries and veins. Whereas in lymph, it is slow because it depends on the muscles, surrounding muscles. So having known both the liquids now, blood as well as the lymph, let's now focus on disorders of circulatory system. What are the diseases with which we suffer? The first one, very common one of late, it's on rise unfortunately because of various tensions and lifestyle, and previously it was seen only after some age, but it is unfortunate that even in youngsters we are seeing this phenomena called hypertension. It's a living style disorder. There are some people who take anything under stress, and quickly they come under stress. And there are people you must have seen in your own village, in your own home, that whatever may be the condition, even in negative situations, they would be very happy. So that's a great blessing. And normally this high blood pressure is not to be neglected, because normally in a normal BP, blood pressure in a normal individual is 120/80. Here the 120 digit refers to systolic pressure. Systolic means pumping pressure, and 80 is the diastolic. Diastolic means relaxation, diastolic pressure. If repeated check shows consistently 140/90 and above, that marks that individual is in high BP, hypertension. So he is a BP patient. And what will happen if you neglect it? It leads to heart attack, heart diseases. It also affects vital organs like brain and kidney. The blood which is supplying the blood vessels which are supplying blood to brain and kidneys get damaged. As a result, kidney will become non-functional, brain damage will also take place. So do not neglect blood pressure. And similarly, opposite also is there. Low blood pressure also is there, wherein the BP falls below normal and that makes a person very submissive, and he becomes cold to situations, and that is a silent killer. We will not be knowing. At least in high BP, the person will show some symptoms like he is frustrated, he shows anger, he is short-tempered, he becomes violent sometimes, and complains of chest pain. There's a lot of sweating. All these symptoms are there. But in low blood pressure, that's a silent killer. A person will not exhibit all this. He will be deadly silent, and that is very, very dangerous. And that is the reason why, particularly if senior citizens are there in your home, often we must go for the checking of blood pressure. Whether it is high or low, both are dangerous, and our target should be in and around 120/80. Of course, depending upon age, of late the American doctors and American Journal of Medicine says it can be around 130 to 135, and the down one, that is diastolic, can be up to 90. So 120/80 to 135/90 also is acceptable nowadays, but beyond that is very, very dangerous. So take care of the people who are having this in your homes. And then next one is CAD, that is coronary artery disease. It's also known as atherosclerosis. It happens due to damage in the blood vessels of heart tissues. Basically, it is due to deposition of excess of calcium, excess of fat, excess of cholesterol. That's why we said that this eating of fatty material is very dangerous, and increased cholesterol in our body is dangerous. It may cause heart related problem. That is the reason. And fibrous tissues. This makes the lumen of the arteries narrower. So basically, atherosclerosis is wall thickening. And once the wall thickening takes place, what happens? Lumen becomes narrower. So once the lumen becomes narrower, the plaque, yellowish plaque, we say atheroma of cholesterol and other lipids are deposited within internal and inner media of the arteries. So the volume of the blood that should flow normally will come down. So there is a pressure on the arteries, and that disease is coronary artery disease, CAD or atherosclerosis. And similarly, there is quite closer to that is called arteriosclerosis. Of course, you must be careful about the spelling. This is atherosclerosis, and another one is arteriosclerosis, ARTA. I am writing here arteriosclerosis, SCLEROSIS, arteriosclerosis. It is a sclerosis and thickening of walls of smaller arteries and arterioles. And arteriosclerosis is very common in elderly persons. Here also again wall thickening, but here wall thickening is of arteries, the walls of smaller arteries and arterioles. That is and because of that, the pressure, internal pressure within the artery or arteriole increases enormously, and finally the artery cannot bear the excessive internal pressure and they blast off. So the arteries and arterioles will break off. There will be internal bleeding. Hence, the arteriosclerosis also is very dangerous. We cannot neglect this. And then we got angina pectoris. This is normally we abbreviate it as angina. It's a symptom of acute chest pain due to less oxygen supply to heart. So angina pectoris is a sudden recurring thoracic pain, chest pain, and sometimes it radiates to left arm especially. Both the arms it may radiate, but left arm is more. When the demand for blood by the heart exceeds the supply of coronary arteries, this will happen. Particularly, be careful, Sunday school boys, you do a lot of exercise, but it's good that you do exercise, but don't do it excessively. Excessive exercise increases the angina pectoris. So take care, you must have your own limitations. And then finally, the myocardial infarction. It is a complication due to reduced blood supply to heart valve. It results in pain, perspiration, nausea, and when we take up the ECG, clearly we can see changes in the ECG. Remember, we were talking about P, QRS line, and then T wave. All this will be changing. QRS wave will be changing. That gives an indication where exactly is the problem. So ECG will help us a lot, as we discussed last time. And finally, heart attack, heart failure. It is a state when heart is not pumping blood effectively to other organs of the body. And why it is not pumping? Where is the problem? In which part of the anatomical heart? We will come to know through ECG. So this is how we can help ourselves to know the exact problems in our circulatory system. As long as circulatory system is functioning, as long as your heart is working normally, I think 90% of us are healthy. So take care, and take care of your heart also.